Welcome everyone to an Elite Speak review of AEW's Full Gear 2020, which is perhaps one of the best pay-per-views of the year. I don't think it was as good as Revolution, mainly because the crowd was hot at Revolution. We had actual many thousands of fans at Revolution. We had near 1,000 at Full Gear. The fans were evident. They were prevalent there. They made their presence felt, but nothing beats the sounds of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rabid AEW fans. But that's really the only thing that brought the pay-per-view down for me. It was just Revolution just had the fans, had more fans than Full Gear. But Full Gear was by far the best pay-per-view of the pandemic era in any company. And from top to bottom, all of the matches hit. All of the matches hit. Even the Elite Deletion cinematic-y match, that hit. It was good stuff throughout the night. We kick it off with the buy-in. We had Serena Deeb, the NWA Women's Champion, versus Allison Kay, former NWA Women's Champion and former NWA wrestler. She's a free agent, and this match was good as well. Both locked it up as Deeb muscles Kay into the corner. Deeb then wrist locks Kay down to the mat. Deeb gets a pinfall for a 2 as they're on the mat. A bit of mat wrestling going on in the early part of this match. Both later trade strikes as the aggression grows in both of them. Deeb gets a hanging neck breaker off on Kay as she was caught in the ropes and gets a 2 count not long after that. Deeb later fights her way out of Kay's hold with a nice backstabber. Kay later gets a rear naked choke on Deeb, but she fights out of it, and then both hit a clothesline on one another, which takes them both off their feet. Kay then gets an Alabama slam off on Deeb for a 2 count. Immediately follows it up with her AK-47 finisher, which she hits, but Deeb rolls out of the ring as a result to avoid getting pinned. But Deeb later retains while using her Serenity Lock submission hold for the tap out victory. Good match to kick Full Gear off. And then after this, what do you know? We got a Thunder Rosa. Her music played and she made her presence felt. The crowd went wild. And she stepped up to Serena Deeb as she looks to take back what's hers, the NWA Women's Championship. They both had a stare down, no physical altercation. Deeb stared Rosa down as she was standing on the ramp. Deeb was in the ring. Good stuff. But my only qualm with this is the NWA Women's Championship seems more important than AEW's own Women's Championship. I don't get that. If AEW would put the same amount of effort that they're doing for the NWA Championship to their own, then we would have something. We would have storylines. We would have some females getting built up that people would want to care about when their matches hit. Simple. I don't know why they're not doing it, but simple. But the match was good. Rosa made her presence felt. We're going to see more of her on AEW TV. Good stuff. This quiets down the rumors that she was looking to get into WWE. No, not a chance. If she wants to keep her promotion and her outside endeavors, she would not go there in the future. But she has like another year left on her NWA contract. She runs up in 2021. So she's going to be with the NWA for a while. Unless she wants a release and such, which I don't see happen. But good match. Then we kick off Full Gear, the actual show. We kick off with the Kenny Omega match. Kenny Omega versus Adam Page. And this was a great match. I believe Omega offered a handshake at the start of the match, but Page didn't want any of that. No handshake taken. Both dodge one another's move and have a chop fest after. Omega goes for the Terminator dive, but Page shuts it down with a boot to his face. Omega then moonsaults off the railing to Page on the outside of the ring, which was good stuff. This happened later as they were on the outside. Page then springboard clothesline Omega off the apron and turns him inside out while doing so. Omega then gets his tope Connie low on Page to the outside. Omega then hits his V-trigger to Page, which sends him down on the entrance ramp. Page then delivers a great powerbomb on Omega to the ramp and gets a pop-up powerbomb for a 2 count in ring not long after. Page hits his Deadeye for the first time in months, and he gets a 2 count off of that. A long 2 count. But Omega hits his one-winged angel that Page tried to fight out of, but to no avail. And Omega gets the win as he wins the World Championship Eliminator Tournament. Great match. And it was just a kickoff match. Good stuff. The story will continue between these two, but Page is now going to face Jon Moxley at a later date. Following this, we had Orange Cassidy versus John Silver of the Dark Order. This was a good match as well. A lot of people was not expecting much from this, but they shut everybody up. Both kick it off by doing their usual shtick. Silver flexes and Orange goes for his pockets. Later, Silver rips out Orange Cassidy's pockets, which draws some heat as he throws them in his mouth and chews them up. He then tosses Orange Cassidy around from corner to corner like he was nothing, like he was a bag of potatoes. Later, Orange Cassidy goes for beach break, but Silver reverses. Orange Cassidy kips up, goes for the orange punch, but Silver rolls him up for a 2 count. Silver later hits his spin doctor finish, and he gets a 2 count for that on Orange Cassidy. Not long after this, Silver went for Brody's discus lariat, but as a result, he suffers. Orange Cassidy ducks it and hits his beach break for the win. Good match. Another match that hit. And we got the next match, the TNT Championship match, and boy, did this one hit as well. This match featured the Darby Allin, the challenger, versus Cody, now Cody Rhodes of the Nightmare Family, the TNT champion. Good stuff. This was the first time Cody was able to use his full name, Cody Rhodes, in AEW since he got the trademark back after WWE canceled it late last week. Darby steps up to Cody to start the match. He's not intimidated. Both lock it up, but Cody brushes Darby off. Darby then slaps Cody in the back of the head, uses his speed to his advantage. Darby later faked Cody out and got a tope off on Cody in his back to the outside. I like Darby's topes. He uses his body like a bullet when he does his topes, and it is devastating looking. Cody then puts Darby in a hammerlock position and tossed him out to the ramp. Cody then gets to work on Darby's arm via a wrist lock. Darby then went for his patented arm drag, but Cody counters with the lock. Cody then hits an avalanche arm lock breaker. Cody then hits an avalanche crossroads for a rope break. Darby's arm was under the ropes. Cody demands that Darby stays down with repeated body slams. He would not stay down. He then brings his belt into the equation. Darby uses it to trip up Cody for a 2 count. Darby then uses his Last Supper pin for a 2 count. Then later in the match, Cody kicks out of Darby's coffin drop. He's the first person to do so, I believe. But not long after this, Darby pins Cody for the win and becomes the new TNT champion. Darby Allin has finally done it. He defeated Cody for a championship. And this marks Darby's first time ever holding gold in the AEW. And this also marks the first time really a non-WWE guy has had gold in AEW. Not counting not counting Riho, whom is an AEW original as well. Post-match, Cody gets on his knees and hands Darby this prestigious title. He takes it, raises it up as he heads to the top rope to proclaim his victory. But after this, Taz then appears. He says he needs a plastic bag because he's about to vomit. Cage and Starks attacks both Cody and Darby from behind. Starks then spears Cody. Team Taz then stands tall. Both Cage and Starks grab the title. They both wanted it. They had a little tug of war. Cage then carries Darby to some spot outside the ring. Cody then fights him off, but to no avail. Darby is then thrown through a set piece, a full gear set piece. Then Cage grabs him out of that, and then they lie him out on his own car that he drove during his entrance that had Face of TNT spray painted on it. They attempt to break his arm with his car door, but Hobbs then comes to the rescue. He obviously says no to teaming up with Taz and his goons. So we shall see what comes of this during this week's Dynamite. Should be good. I believe Darby will have a nice title reign, because all his matches have been bangers, in my opinion. Next segment, we had QT, Marshall, and Dustin. QT calls out Allie. He says, you infiltrated the most prolific family in wrestling. And why? Because it nets you more TV time, etc. Dustin then challenges the Butcher and the Blade to a bunkhouse match. This comes up on this week's Dynamite, Wednesday's Dynamite, which should be good, interesting. An interesting note following this, the WWE filed some trademarks on the Bunkhouse Stampede name, etc. So obviously they got wind of this. This is no coincidence. Why would they even bother? So they're going to do this to possibly make it where AEW can't use the Bunkhouse name in a match. We'll see what happens. It's just WWE being petty as usual. Next match we had Hikaru Shida, the AEW Women's Champion, versus Nyla Rose. This was a good match for what it was, but it had no build. It had a build, but it was just one promo on Dark of Vicky Guerrero saying that Nyla would refuse to work until Shida accepted her challenge, which took weeks for her to do, by the way. And she miraculously did about the week or two before Full Gear. So there you have it. But the match was good. It was okay for what it was. Shida pounces on Nyla to start the match. Shida drop kicks Nyla twice and follows it up with a knee strike. Shida then strikes Rose on the apron. Shida grabs a chair from under the ring to launch off of it, but doesn't work as Nyla gets a clothesline off on Shida instead. Rose then goes for a table from under the ring, but Aubrey stops that. But instead, Nyla grabs a chair, but this allows Shida to get a knee strike off on Nyla. Vicky then gets involved, and this gives Nyla Rose the edge. Rose then gets a knee drop to Shida's knee as she was draped over the ropes, and this nets Nyla a 2 count. Shida then hits an avalanche Falcon Arrow to Rose for a 2 count. Not long after this, Shida eventually wins the match, and she retains her World Women's Championship to my surprise. I thought Shida would be losing this match, but maybe they have other plans for Shida. Someone else to take the title off of her, because this was Rose's last shot, in my opinion. So it's going to be a while before she comes back. Post-match, this might tell a different tale of why they might have done this. Post-match, Vicky and Nyla shows they teased a split, somewhat of a split here. Vicky Guerrero was upset with Nyla because she lost. So she got up all in Nyla's face, and it looked like Nyla was about to knock Vicky on her butt. But Vicky slapped Nyla and then walked out of the ring to the back. And this left Nyla in the middle of the ring, pouty, looking down in shame, head down in shame. So maybe this turns Nyla Rose face. Who knows? Maybe Nyla could be going on a face run in the future. And if that's the case, then she will not be challenging for the title anytime soon again. So maybe they bring in a Britt Baker to finally take it off of her. Or maybe even Serena Deeb can do the job. We'll see. Hopefully they turn this into some kind of angle. Make people want to care about the women's division. That's all they need to do. Give them some stories to work with. But there you have it. A decent match from Shida and Rose. Shida retains. Next match, we had the Young Bucks versus the tag team champions, FTR. And this was a good match as well. This match, a lot of people were looking forward to this match, but they weren't looking forward to it as much as they should have. But maybe that worked in their favor because this match turned out to be great. This match was great. I didn't even get much notes on it to start. I just started taking notes in the middle of the match because I was literally just got lost. I was paying attention to this match. So, but later in the match, FTR goes for a powerplex, but Matt gets his knees up and he gets a roll up for a 2 count. Cash then goes for a splash to Matt on the outside, but Matt dodges it and Cash crashes into the rails. Nick finally gets the hot tag as he runs wild with the kicks, and then he takes them both out on the outside, both as in FTR. Nick then crossbodies Cash, but Cash catches him and tags in Dax for a double team move and gets a 2 count. Matt then hits a twist of fate, followed by a Nick Swanton bomb for a 2 count. At this point, FTR and the Young Bucks, they were pulling out all the classic tag team finishers here. And a lot of people popped for this. This was a good spot. FTR then goes for the spike power driver, but Nick stops it for a sharpshooter. Dax gets to the ropes. Both Bucks get stereo sharpshooters on FTR, and there's no rope break here. The Bucks hit the BTE trigger and almost defeats FTR, but Cash Wheeler breaks it up. FTR then hits the mind breaker, but doesn't get a 3 count because Matt got his foot on the ropes. Nick then hits a 450 to break up Dax's reverse figure 4 on Matt. Cash Wheeler of the FTR went for a 450 splash. This is something we never really seen him do because there are no flips, just fists. But Wheeler tried to beat the Young Bucks at their own game as he went for a 450 but missed. The Bucks then win via a super kick to become the tag team champions. This was a good match. The finish came out of nowhere. It was a good finish because FTR tried to beat the Bucks at their own game, but it did not work out in their favor. And they suffered a super kick for the loss. Post-match, Omega comes out to help the Bucks celebrate. Paige was there, but lurking in the background in the tunnels as all of this unfolds. Interesting. So the story continues to brew here. Many people wondered why Omega was out there because they thought we were getting a cleaner Omega. Why would he be hanging around the Bucks? Interesting. And Paige was just there. I guess that was his way of showing his support reluctantly. We'll see where this goes. Next up, we had the Elite Deletion match. Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara. This was good, but some would argue it went on a bit long. Guevara pulls up in a golf cart that says Spanish God on the hood. He eyes down the Neo 1, Vanguard one replacement. Hardy then shows up in a monster truck, which squashes the golf cart. Sammy was not in that golf cart. He snuck around the side of the monster truck, grabbed a trash can, and then hit Matt Hardy in the back. Later, they make it to a ring, and Matt delivers the side effect for a 2 count. Then Ortiz shows up to break another pinfall from Matt after he slammed Guevara through a table. Private Party then comes to Hardy's aid. They then trade Roman candle shots while ducking the line of fire. Later, Gangrel and Hurricane Helm shows up. Much later, Matt and Sammy get separated from the others. Sammy dives from the top of a ladder into Matt Hardy for a 2 count. Matt then twist of fate Sammy. He then spears Sammy through the table set up on the outside. And then to finish this off, Matt Hardy concerto Sammy for the win. At the end of this, Private Party helps Matt Hardy stuff Guevara's body into a trash can. And they loaded this trash can on the back of a truck that Senor Benjamin was driving. And off Sammy went. A nice fitting end to this feud, finally. After this, Jake Roberts and Lance Archer has a promo. Jake says they're tired of training. Archer doesn't want food, he wants people. And then Archer later says he's going to break every single person in AEW. Everybody dies. So they're going to do something with Archer sooner or later. They're building him up towards something. Next matchup, we had MJF versus Chris Jericho. And if MJF wins, he gets to join the Inner Circle. Once again, I say MJF does not need the Inner Circle. Once again, I say, why is Jericho letting MJF even get a shot at getting into the group? Why? I don't get it. But the match was good. MJF went for a handshake, but Jericho slaps him. MJF then chops Jericho a bit, then gets the better of Jericho. MJF fake attempt goes for a tope, then gets sent into the barricade by Jericho. Jericho later goes for a Judas effect to MJF on the outside, but he ducks and Jericho instead hits the ring post. MJF takes advantage. Later, Jericho shows glimpses of his old self springing like a cat to do a Frankensteiner and a lion salt, which impressed a lot of folks. Later, MJF hits his heat seeker for a 2 count after a code breaker while draped in the ropes. MJF then goes for a lion salt of his own, but Jericho dodges it and hits the code breaker and gets a 2 count. Jericho then goes for a Judas effect, but MJF catches it and gets his Salt of the Earth armbar on Jericho, but Jericho reaches the ropes. Wardlow then makes it to the ring and delivers a ring to MJF, but Hager makes it with a bat for Jericho. MJF acts as if he got hit with the bat as Aubrey turns around, and this caused confusion, which allowed MJF to roll Jericho up for the win. I like the finish because he pulled a page out of Eddie Guerrero's playbook. Lying, cheating, and stealing. Post-match, both shake hands as Jericho is welcomed into the Inner Circle. Wardlow was staring down Hager yet again during this exchange. Next, we had an interview segment. Dasha interviews Orange Cassidy. He says he has no thoughts on the match with Silver. Then Kip Sabian and Miro show up. Orange Cassidy got slapped by Kip, but plays it cool and leaves with the best friends. And this surprises Kip because he expected retaliation, but he didn't get it. Adding more fuel to the fire for their tag team matchup eventually. Then we had our main event. The AEW World Champion Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston, his longtime friend, in an I Quit match. This match was brutal and a nice match to cap off the show. Both go at it with strikes to start the match. Kingston gets dropped with a Mox right hand. Both chop back and forth. Kingston then gets a belly-to-belly suplex off on Mox. Mox then gets a tope off on King after he grabs a chair from under the ring. They then spend a good amount of time on the outside of the ring. Mox then grabs a barbed wire bat and strikes Eddie in the chest and in the back with this bat. Both are bleeding as a result. Kingston then grabs a chair and plants it into Mox's back. He then grabs some barbed wire from the bat and wraps it around his hand and strikes Mox with it multiple times. He follows it up with his spinning back fist finish. Kingston later puts the Bulldog choke on Mox after some brutal hardcore spots. Mox refuses to quit. Mox then reverses with a sleeper and pile drives Kingston. He then put the Bulldog choke on Kingston, dropped a knee into his face, and then paradigm shifts him. Mox then wraps some wire around his arm, and then he applies the Bulldog choke on Kingston with the wire into Kingston's neck. And as a result, Kingston says, "I quit," and Mox retains his world championship. Great finish, great match. Post-match, Mox attempts to help Kingston up, but Kingston refused. Omega then comes out and has some words with Mox as both stared each other down, and we went off the air. Great show from top to bottom. Full Gear definitely made up for their last pay-per-view, All Out, which was hindered by a major injury. But this one had nothing of the sort happened. Everyone was good. No injuries, hopefully. Every match went as planned without a hitch. Good show. Great show. The best pay-per-view since Revolution, in my opinion. And there you have it. Your Elite Speak review of AEW's Full Gear pay-per-view for 2020. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you with the next review.